Good afternoon, everyone. I hope you are doing well. So we are meeting after 2 weeks, I guess. Right? So now today we will discuss permanent settlement. Permanent settlement. So if you remember now, please when I will be explaining, jot down simultaneously. So if you remember earlier we have discussed zamindari system, mansabdari system. Remember iqtadari system. So now Riti will tell. What was your name? Parul, yes. Now Parul will tell. Mansab means a kind of territory. So Mansab was allotted to one particular person. The person to whom that Mansab was allotted, he was known as Mansabdar. So it was his duty to collect revenue from that Mansab. So similar kind of a colloquially used. Iqtadar was also similar system, but they were at different intervals. Iqta system was earlier, Mansabdar system was later. So when you will revise your notes, you will find these terms there. Fine. So you have to remember these terms. So they can give you question in match the following. So there you have to be very clear that during whose time Iqtadari system was there or Mansabdari system was there. So similar kind of system was there, permanent settlement. So when we discussed Lord Cornwallis, there we have written the name of two persons who designed this settlement into where we have written that administrative development, political development. Two names were there. Not able to find? John Shores and James Grant. So two persons were there. John Shores and James Grant. They designed this permanent settlement. So now understand what was there in permanent settlement. Suppose this is a piece of land. If this is a piece of land, and suppose this piece of a land is yielding 220 uh, 220 bags of wheat or rice, you can say 220 bags of any food grain. Now what Britishers did, they sold this piece of land to a particular zamindar, particular person, and that person was known as zamindar. Now it is the responsibility of zamindar to collect revenue from the people who will be working on this particular land. So in this permanent settlement, the name permanent suggests that revenue was fixed for near future. For 10-15 years, revenue was fixed. So they decided that this is the area of a land, and in this particular land, this much crop can be grown. So they assessed before giving allotment. So the Britishers assessed that 220 bags can be grown in average year from this piece of a land. So they decided that now zamindar will collect 220 pieces of bags of food grain from this particular piece of land. Now total production is 220. Now out of this 220, 50% was taken as tax by the zamindar. 50% zamindar will collect. So 50% of a 220 is 110. Fine. Now this collected amount 110, 10 by 11th part. 10 by 11th part of this collected revenue will be given to Britishers. 10 by 11th of this will be given to Britishers, and the remaining 1 by 11th will be kept by zamindars as his income or commission. Fine. I will explain again. This is the piece of land. Now in this piece of land, 220 bags were there, for example. Now government decided, or Britishers decided, that they asked the zamindar who is holding this particular set of land, that you will collect 50% of the production from the peasants who will be working there in this field. So from this 220, 50% is 110. 50% was collected by this zamindar from the peasants who were working there in this field. Now from that 50%, 110, from this 50% or the collected revenue, 10 by 11th, 10 by 11th part will be given to the Britishers, and the remaining 1 by 11th will be remain with the zamindar only as his commission. Fine. एक्सटेंशन वो खत्म है, बस परमानेंट सेटलमेंट पढ़ रहे हैं, तो इसको ड्रॉ कर लो. So if there is a question in exam, so you have to do like this. तो देख लो ना, यहाँ पे टोटल है आपका 10 by 11th, 1 by 11th बचा, उससे टोटल 11. They designed that we will, they designed this, that we will do this, we will take 50%, and from that 50%, 10 by 11th will be given to the Britishers, and 1 by 11th will remain with the zamindar. So this was designed by John Sholes and James Grant. %50 they collected from the peasants. देखो सिंपल है, ये लैंड थी, इसमें जितना भी प्रोड्यूस हुआ, XYZ जितना भी प्रोड्यूस हुआ, फ्रॉम दैट प्रोड्यूस 50% दे टुक एज अ टैक्स, and 50% was with the peasants only. They are working in the field, so they will also keep some grains, na? Otherwise why they will work in the lands? They will keep, the farmers will keep 50%, and 50% was taken by zamindar, and from that 50%, 10 by 11th was given to the Britishers, and 1 by 11th was kept by him. Confusion? So that 50% of that part was not for the zamindars, that was collected for the Britishers by the zamindars. Fine. Now, before this system, what was the system before this permanent settlement? There was no owner of land. Anyone can work anywhere. There was no such system. Actually, kings used to allot the lands before this permanent settlement. Now, after the introduction of permanent settlement, zamindars were made real owners. That now this land belonged to zamindars. So this is important. In permanent settlement, zamindar became the real owners of the land. And hereditary right of the peasants were taken away by the zamindars. पहली लाइन क्या लिखा आपने पारुल? Zamindars were made real owners of the land. Before this system was that there were hereditary rights, that my father used to work in this land, now I am working in this land, now after me my son will work in this land. So no legal rights were there. So they made zamindars as the owner, that zamindars are the real owners. And system was that 50% of revenue that was fixed by Britishers, and they also fixed that what can be the maximum crop grown in this particular piece of land. Britishers only decided that, but that amount decided by Britishers was very high, and with the passage of a time, this the zamindars actually, when we want to have good crop from the land, we have to invest in the land also. We have to put fertilizers and pesticides, herbicides, various kind of inputs we have to provide. Then only land can yield. But zamindars did not bother to invest in the lands, because suppose if Britishers decided that from this particular land 220 bags will be there. So Britishers have decided this. Now for years, for 5-10 years, this figure will be 220 only. Suppose next year production is 250. Now there are 30 surplus bags. Those 30 surplus bags will be retained by zamindars only. Britishers had no control over the surplus production. This was the drawback. So later on, Britishers shifted this permanent settlement. They were not happy with this permanent settlement. That is why the name permanent. They fixed that this will be the revenue from this particular land. They fixed. That revenue was not assessed year by year. Fine. Now surplus production remained with the zamindars. So it was a loss for whom? Britishers. So that was why in the later period of time, Britishers wanted to change this system. Also, many a time this revenue was kept very high, and zamindars were not able to pay that revenue. So Britishers auctioned their land. So they auctioned the land, and whomsoever will pay the higher bid, he will be allotted that land. So in next 5 years, almost 70-80% of the zamindars they sold their lands because they were not able to pay the revenue, because they set that limit of a tax very high. The first year crop was fine, production was fine, but next year no input was there from the side of zamindars, because now zamindars are the real owners. Earlier farmer were the real owners. Now if someone is real owner, he will invest in his land, he will invest fertilizers, herbicides, pesticides, he will invest. But now zamindar is the owner. So peasants are working as a renters, tenants, we say tenants. They are working for this particular year. Now they are not sure that in the next year will they get that land to work on or not. So they did not invest. And zamindars did not bother to invest in these lands. With the passage of a time, production decreased. When production decreased, they were not able to pay revenue to the Britishers. When Britishers were not having the set revenue, they sold land allotted to zamindars. They sold their lands, and in next 5 or 6 years, most of the zamindars sold their land. They became bankrupt. They were not having any revenue to pay the Britishers. So in this permanent settlement, actually the farmers or the Britishers were the net losers. Farmers were the losers, because farmers, suppose some one person is growing 100 bags, so out of that 100, 50 were taken by Britishers as a, or zamindar as a tax revenue. So this revenue was very high. 50% is very high. Suppose you are earning 1 lakh and someone is asking you to pay 50,000 as a tax. It is very difficult to work in such a system. So zamindars even forced their peasants to work in the fields. So they were not happy. Even zamindars were also not happy because they were in a loss. So this system was a failure in the later period of a time. And Britishers wanted good source of revenue for their expansion. So now the Britishers are in the stage of expansion. From that Battle of Buxar, remember 1764. From that period, Britishers expanded their territories in India. So they, for expansion, they needed money, because they have to keep a huge army to fight in the battles, and to support that huge army they need money. And for money, they are not having much sources in India. For that sources, they extracted money from the farmers in the form of revenue. Fine. So this was a permanent revenue. Now this permanent settlement is important for your mains as well as for your preliminary examination. In preliminary examination, they will ask you the conditions. What were the conditions in permanent settlement? Now there is again one important term in this permanent settlement. That term is patta. This patta was a kind of a certificate zamindar used to give to the peasant. Suppose you are a peasant and one person is a zamindar of your area. That zamindar will give you a legal agreement, patta, that this is the land you are working in and this is the revenue I will be collecting from you. So that was a legal, you can say receipt. That receipt, bill, you can say it was a kind of bill, and that bill was known as patta. They sometimes they ask a question that patta was issued by zamindar. Now, in place of a permanent settlement, they will change permanent settlement from another term. So that you have to be very clear. Fine. Towards the present. Zamindar will issue. It was a legal document, like registration bill, or bill you can say. When you buy something, or when you come into a contract with someone, then there is a legal paper. Fine. So next, governor, you can give the heading. John Shores. John Shore. 1793 to 1798. So not much eventful. There was two important events. First, you can write Charter Act of 1793. लिख लो, कैसे भी ज़्यादा कुछ है नहीं इनके बारे में, आएगा तो एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव डेवलपमेंट में, पॉलिटिकल डेवलपमेंट में, एडमिनिस्ट्रेटिव डेवलपमेंट. So now few of the governors are not that eventful. So you will not get much fodder to consolidate their points in those subheadings. Fine. 93. So one important event was this Battle of Karda, 1785. Now, if you remember, Marathas. Now, we will talk about Charter Act also. There are only two important events. One is Charter Act. Second important event is Battle of Kharda. So first we will talk about Battle of Kharda, then we will write about Charter Act. So this, I just give you pointers earlier. So now I am explaining. This Battle of Kharda, 1795. If you remember, we discussed in Marathas. Marathas collected two taxes, Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. So now Marathas collected those taxes from the nearby areas. So now the nearby kings or the kings of nearby region, they were not happy with the Marathas because they were forcing the people living in their territory to give Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. So the Nizam of Hyderabad was not happy with this. So who was the Peshwa during 1795? Son of one person who was a kid. Savai Madhavrao. Savai Madhavrao was the Peshwa during this time. And there was a Nizam of Hyderabad. His name was Asaf Jha II. You can write Asaf Jha II. Asaf Jha. Asaf Jha or Mir Nizam Ali. Both are same. He was Nizam of Hyderabad. Nizam of Hyderabad region, and the Peshwa of Maratha was Savai Madhavrao. This battle was over Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. So battle was fought between Savai Madhavrao's army and Asaf Jha's army. So, and Maratha defeated Asaf Jha in this battle. They were defeated. And it is said that it was the last united effort of Marathas towards any other power. Before this, Marathas again united in 1761. Remember that battle? In 1761 battle was there. Battle of Karnal. Which battle? So you have to revise because you will not be able to connect. There was also gap of 2 weeks. So it is not good to have a gap in between, so you will forget everything what we have discussed. So in the next class, please revise everything what we have done, particularly modern history. Fine. So then it will be easy for you to connect. Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. Marathas were collecting. No. Actually, Asaf Jha was having his own territory. Marathas, they were forcing the people living in the territory of Nizam that pay Chauth and Sardeshmukhi, and the people complained to their Nizam that foreign rulers, or for them Marathas were foreign rulers, that Marathas were compelling us to pay Chauth and Sardeshmukhi. For that reason, battle was there between the two. In that battle, Nizam was defeated, and it was the last united effort by Marathas. So after this, Marathas will break into their uniting families. Remember their families? Bhonsles, Gaikwads, Sindhyas. One more was there, Holkars. Both families were there. Also, other families were also there, but these four were prominent. So after this, in 1795, the person, this Savai Madhavrao, he committed suicide. Hmm. Why he committed suicide? Yes, 95, 1795. तो पहले हुई थी काफी. Hmm. He committed suicide, this person. So if you remember, when he became Peshwa, he was a very small kid. There was one person who was supporting him. Remember his name? Nana Fadnavis. Nana Fadnavis was his mentor. But when he became young adult, so in adulthood, usually men or boys, they become rebellious. They don't want to listen even to their parents also. So you might have seen during this age in plus two or in first years, boys don't talk to their fathers because two person with the same ego. So yes, it is very true. If you observe, 10 out of 8 out of a 10 boys will have such kind of relationship, avoidance relationship with their father during this age. So it is hormonal issue. So he was also having that issue with the Nana Fadnavis because Nana Fadnavis was controlling his life. Nana was dictating him to do this, not to do this, or this. So he was controlling his life. So it's very usual also when you are controlled by some external elements. Many times you will get frustrated. So in that frustration, you can even go fall into a bad company also. So in that young teenage, that boys also, they remain in the company of their friends only. They don't want to go home because in their home they are constantly nagged by their parents, particularly their father. So Savai Madhavrao committed suicide because his life was controlled by Nana Fadnavis. Fine. Now the new Peshwa was last Peshwa. Who was last Peshwa? Bajirao 2 became Bajirao 2 became next Peshwa. Now you can give the heading Charter Act of 1793. बाजीराव 2. तो जो आपको लिस्ट दी थी मैंने, वो याद करना है. याद नहीं भी कर पाओ तो उसको गो थ्रू होना है बार बार. So when you are through that list, on it is not like that you are revising that list on one particular day, that I have read this list 10 times or 20 times in at one time or in one day. No, you have to read that list number of times in different days. Then only you will be able to learn that list. Fine. So write on the Charter Act of 1793. First, first point, that it extended companies rule by 20 years. Second, that members of board of control, it first point is it extended companies rule by 20 years. Second point, that members of board of control were to be paid out of Indian revenue. Members of board of control were to be paid out of Indian revenue. Third point, all important appointments in India, all important appointments in India were to be made under the seal of British Crown. Under the seal or head. Seal, stump. All important appointments in India to be made under the seal of British Crown. The privileges, next point, the privileges given to Cornwallis were extended to all the governors. So if you remember, there was an act. In that act, Cornwallis was given special powers that he can override his council, provided he is responsible for the outcomes. So that exception or that powers, these powers are extended to all the governor generals who will be coming in the near future. Next point, that from 1793 onward, CIC, Commander in Chief, was not to be a member of GGIC, Governor General in Council, unless accepted by COD, Court of Directors. Governor General in Council. That council of, earlier it was council of 4, then one member was reduced, 3 हो गए, and in that 3, one was essentially to be Commander in Chief of Army. Now this one clause was added that Commander in Chief can become member of GGIC only when it was accepted by Court of Directors. Fine. Board of Director, you can say same. If they accept, then he can become. Board of Director, Court of Director, both are same. Board of Control, Court of Control, same. The Governor General was allowed, next point, Governor General was allowed to override his Executive Council. Under special circumstances. Company had to pay a tribute of 5 lakh pound. Company had to pay a tribute of 5 lakh pound per annum to the British government. Per annum or per year to the British government. Next point. Company was authorized to issue licenses to the individuals for trading. To the individuals. Earlier it was one company which was doing trade. Now that company can authorize other people to do trade. Third case. Actually, this was to facilitate trade with the China. The company was Britishers were trading with the China. They were trading in opium. You know opium? What is opium? Afim. Afim ka trade was there with the China. Afim and tea trade was there with the China. So to facilitate that trade, that the British government allowed company to issue licenses to the individuals, so that those individuals can bring opium from China and can sell that opium in India also. Fine. This was all about this Chapter Act of 1793. Now please leave some gap there, 2-3 lines. 2-3 lines, not much gap. Actually, only this much is important in Charter Act of 1793. In future, in the course of your preparations, if you get any important point, then add that point in your notes. Yes, fine. So that's all about this act. Now give the next heading. Next, Governor General Richard, Richard, Richard Wellesley, Wellesly. Richard Wellesley. In 98 to 0. This person is important for us. Now this actually permanent settlement was designed by John Shores and James Grant during the time of Lord Cornwallis, but that was not implemented finally. So that before him, John Shores, he implemented that permanent settlement, but its actual implementation was done by Lord Wellesley. Fine. He perfected its implementation. During the time of Lord Cornwallis, it was only designed, not implemented. During the time of John Shores, it was implemented. But this, he perfected the implementation of permanent settlement. हाँ, लेट हुआ था वो, हाँ, इसके टाइम की कह सकते हो, इसके बाद की कह सकते हो। फाइन। तो अब क्या है कि व्हेन जब मैंने आपको कॉर्नवालिस के बारे में लिखाया था पीछे, उसमें मैंने आपको दो लोगों के नाम लिखवाए थे। वो जो दो नाम है उन्होंने डिज़ाइन किया है, जॉन शोर्स एंड जेम्स ग्रांट। पढ़ लेना आप, जब रिवाइज करोगे तो हो जाएगी सब चीज़ें क्लियर। थोड़ा रिवाइज कर लेना आगे की क्लास के लिए भी। नाउ रिमेंबर, इफ यू रिमेंबर, when we studied that battle of Buxar, Britishers could also annex Awadh, but they did not annex Awadh. Why? Because they wanted to make Awadh buffer state. You know buffer state? Buffer state is a state which is kept outside the one's territory to act as a buffer, to keep themselves safe from others' attack. Suppose India, if we are living in India and India keeps Pakistan, so we are hypothetical situation, India keeps Pakistan as a buffer from attack from a country who is beyond Pakistan. So first they will attack Pakistan, then they will reach towards us. So we will keep friendly relationship with the Pakistan. We will support them militarily, so that if an attack is there, first Pakistan will witness that attack. Then our turn will come, and when they will attack us, for that time we will be prepared for the war. So this is a buffer state, or this strategy is called as strategy of ring fence. Strategy of ring fence. Ring fence. You know fence? Fencing? That fence. Now, the actual originator of this policy was Dupleix. There was a French governor, Dupleix, you remember? Duplex, we pronounce it as Dupleix. So Dupleix was the main person or main brain behind this policy. He used this in South India. So from him, Robert Clive learned this policy. So Robert Clive learned this policy, and Richard Wellesley made few changes in this ring fence policy, and a new policy was there. That policy is termed as subsidiary alliances. Subsidiary alliance. So now this subsidiary alliance was in 4 stages. You will write like this only in exam also and in your notes also. That subsidiary alliance was introduced by Richard Wellesley. Now we will understand how this worked. That there was a stage 1 in this subsidiary alliance. So from alliance, what do you understand from alliance? Alliance means dosti. एक तरह की simple terms, alliance means a friendship. So this was also one type of a friendship, but was beneficial to only one friend. So in first stage, what they did, introduction, or in first stage, they established friendly relation with the Indian state. In first stage, they established friendly relations with the Indian states. Very friendly relations with the Indian states, and gave them confidence that don't worry, if you are in a worry, we will come for your help, we will fight from your side. So Indians were happy. So now they have made already a friendly relationship with the Indian ruler. So this is the first step. In second step, they will participate in the wars of friendly rulers. In second stage, they will participate in wars from the side of friendly rulers, and they will show the prowess of their army. They will show the strength of their army, Britishers. And their main point was to prove that the forces of British, they were superior to the local forces. So if I have to convince you for one thing, that if suppose you are having one particular car, or I am having also one car, so you are having arrogance that my car is superior. Now I am taking you to the ground, now asking you to compete with my car, not in that competition manner. uh, Normally I am saying to you, then if you see that my car is faster than your car, then you will get convinced that yes, your car is superior. So similar kind of a thing was done by Britishers. They took their army in front of the local rulers army. Now both armies are fighting. So now the local ruler is witnessing that yes, British army is superior. Actually British army was superior because they were very disciplined. British army was very disciplined, and they were very good leaders and modernized army. They were having modernized army. Modern weapons were there with them. Fine. Now in third stage, they convinced local rulers. They convinced local or subsidiary ruler, you can say. They convinced subsidiary ruler to abandon his own army. To abandon his army and keep an subsidiary army. Keep an subsidiary army. Now this subsidiary army will fight from the side of local ruler, subsidiary ruler, and the expenses of this army will be borne by local ruler. Now there were few conditions also. Condition was that if we are giving you our army, well modernized army, then you have to follow few of the conditions. First condition is that you will not take this army to the battles without taking our permission. So our permission is important. Fine. So this army also cannot be used towards the friends of Britishers. So if you are my enemy, but you are friend of Britishers, I cannot use subsidiary army with you because you are a friend of British. Fine. And they Britishers promised. स्टेज 3 में चल रहा सब कुछ. अभी जो स्टेज 1 और 2 छोटी है, स्टेज 3 सब थोड़ी बड़ी है. And Britishers also promised that we will not interfere. It was just for saying. They interfered largely. That we will not interfere, we will give you full autonomy. But you have to avoid foreign relations. You मतलब subsidiary ruler have to avoid foreign relations. Means subsidiary ruler cannot have relationship or any relation with the foreign powers, Europeans particularly. They cannot employ other Europeans. They have to be necessarily only they have to have a relationship only with the Britishers. They cannot have relationship with the French, Russians, and any other foreign power. Fine. And to check the conduct of this subsidiary army, an agent was there. British agent was there. British political agent was there. He will check the conduct of army and the conduct of that subsidiary ruler also, that whether this ruler is ruling as per the guidelines of the Britishers or not. Fine. So now stage 4. Stage 4. Now in this stage 4, so you remember that local ruler has to bear the expense of subsidiary army. So the salary or the other expenses of the subsidiary army was given by the local ruler. In this fourth stage, the expenses of subsidiary army were raised extensively. Very huge amount of money was asked by the Britishers. Now the local ruler will become unable to pay this increased amount. Now the local ruler had only two choices. One choice was that he can give some part of his territory to the Britishers. Second is that he can put taxes on the people, heavy taxes on the people, so that people can pay some money, and that money can collect and give to the Britishers. But the second option cannot be practiced because farmers were already stressed. That agriculture was already in stress. No substantial amount of revenue was from agriculture. So he had the only option to give territory to the Britishers, some part of a territory. So for this year, suppose he gave one territory, but for next year again, then army will, that amount is due. Now the next year, Britishers will ask for higher amount. So with this practice, Wellesley annexed many of the kingdoms. Fine. So now this subsidiary alliance act as a sword for Britishers. At one hand, they were able to expand in India because they made friendly relationship with the local rulers, and ultimately in the fourth stage they annexed that particular state, and at the same time they were able to keep other European powers at the bay. Other European powers could not also make relationship with the native rulers because it was the condition under subsidiary alliance. Fine. So now there can be question in mains also. Now there can be question in prelims also. So you have to be clear about these stages. Fine. Now there is one homework for you. You will find out that few of the states came under subsidiary alliance. Now you have to find out that which was the first state to come under subsidiary alliance, and which one was the last state. And you have to remember, you have to have the idea of this sequence also. So once a question was there that this particular state was the last to be annexed by the Britishers under subsidiary alliance, or last to come under subsidiary alliance, you have to be aware about this sequence also. So you will find it out. Say one state was Hyderabad. When I am telling you, it was the first state. 1798, 1801, he came under subsidiary alliance. Then there were other state also. You have to find out. Fine. Then you will add that in your notes. Fine. So next important event during this time was a war. 1799. I told you about this war. There was a fourth Anglo Mysore war. 1799, fourth Anglo Mysore war. Fine. Now there was not much happening during this war. Tipu Sultan was the ruler. Tipu Sultan was already in enmity with the Britishers. If you remember, in the last battle, last war between English and the Mysore, his sons were taken as hostages. He paid some of the amount, and as a guarantee that he will pay the rest amount, his sons were taken. If you remember, so he was having enmity with the Britishers. So in 1799, war was there. In that war, Tipu Sultan was killed. Tipu Sultan was defeated and he was killed. And his sons who ruled there after him, they attained subsidiary alliance, Mysore. They came under subsidiary alliance. So write just one line that Tipu was defeated and killed, and Mysore came under subsidiary alliance. Give the next heading. Second Maratha war. Anglo-Maratha War. Anglo-Maratha War. 1803 to 1800. Now, in 1795, Savai Madhavrao was Peshwa. He committed suicide. After him, who became Peshwa? Bajirao too. Fine. Now, there was a person who was consolidated, who had consolidated Maratha Empire till now. His name was Nana Fadnavis. Nana Fadnavis was the joining entity, like Sonia Gandhi in Congress. She is the lady who has been still now consolidating Congress as a one party. Had she not been there, Congress might have disintegrated. So there is a, in many of the party there is a one particular link who keeps holding that particular party. So similar kind of a link was Nana Fadnavis. In Marathas, there are many families. You remember Holkars, Bhonsles, Gaikwads, Sindhyas. Those families were controlled or united by Nana Fadnavis, but he died in 1800s. 1800, Nana Fadnavis died. Now there was a disintegration in Maratha families, and in Maratha families, head was Peshwa. Before Peshwa, Chhatrapati was head. But with the passage of a time, Peshwa became de facto rulers, original ruler. Now, every Maratha family, Sindhyas or Holkars, every other Maratha family tried to establish their control over Peshwa. And in the end, Sindhyas emerged victorious in establishing control over Peshwas. So, the Sindhyas and Peshwas, they are now on one side. Peshwa plus Sindhya. Now they are on one side. Fine. Now there was a person, Jaswant Rao Holkar. He was powerful ruler of Holkar. Jaswant Rao Holkar. Now this person was important, or this person was powerful person. He was more powerful than Peshwas and Sindhyas, Jaswantrao Holkar. In one of the battles, he also went to Delhi to fight from the side of Marathas. Now he was having one brother. His name was Vithuji. He was a person in Holkar family. Marathas only Holkar, powerful ruler. Now this person Vithuji, he started venturing into the territories of Peshwa and Sindhya. Vithuji. Vithuji was his brother. Fine. Vithuji ventured into the territories of Peshwa and Sindhya. And Peshwa and Sindhyas fought a battle, a small battle with the Vithuji. And they killed Vithuji. Peshwa and Sindhyas, they killed Vithuji. Now, when they killed Vithuji, who became angry? Jaswantrao Holkar, that how they dared to kill my brother. Now, Jaswantrao Holkar, it was in 1801, he was killed. Yes. Vithuji was his brother, Jaswantrao Holkar's brother. This person was, Vithuji was killed by Peshwa and Sindhyans in 1801. Now, Jaswantrao Holkar wanted to revenge. He wanted to take revenge. And he attacked Peshwa and Sindhyas in 1802. Battle was there. Battle of Pune, 1802. Battle of Pune, 1802. In that battle, Jaswantrao defeated Peshwa and India. POONA. The Peshwa and Sindhyas were defeated. They were defeated. At the same time, Jaswant Rao appointed a person. His name was Vinayak Rao. He appointed Vinayak Rao as Peshwa. When he appointed Vinayak Rao as Peshwa, who might have got angered? Or Peshwa himself. Peshwa himself was angry that he dethroned. They defeated. No, he did not kill. He only defeated. Now Vinayak Rao became Peshwa. Now Peshwa is angry. Bajirao is very angry. He wanted to be the Peshwa and he went to the Britishers. He went to Britishers and signed a treaty with the Britishers. Treaty of Bassein. Treaty of Bassein. Or this treaty is also called as Treaty of or Treaty with Zero or Cipher. Treaty of Zero or Cipher means let's jot down this, then we'll continue. Following till now. Now, this person Peshwa Bajirao II, he signed a treaty with Britishers. The name of the treaty was Treaty of Bassein. But that treaty is also called as Treaty with Zero. Treaty with Zero or Treaty with Cipher. Treaty with Zero signifies that this person Peshwa signed a treaty with Britishers as a Peshwa, but actually he was not Peshwa at that time, because at his place Vinayak Rao was placed as the Peshwa by Jaswant Rao Holkar. Fine. That is why this treaty is called as Treaty of Cipher, Treaty with Cipher, or Treaty with Zero, because he was not legitimate to sign that treaty. Fine. Now, during this treaty, Peshwa became subsidiary ruler. He signed subsidiary alliance with the Britishers. Peshwa Bajirao II. He became subsidiary ruler. And this alliance hurt the political ego of Marathas. And Marathas again tried to unite against Britishers. And Britishers defeated Bhonsles in 1803. Bhonsles in 1803. Sindhyas in 1804. And Holkars in 1806. Holkars in 1806. वही संधि है. Now with the Bhonsles, they signed a treaty. Treaty of Devgaon. Treaty of Dev. Now these treaties are different with the different Maratha powers. Earlier there used to be a one single treaty with all the Marathas. Here Marathas signed those treaties individually. So with Bhonsles, there was a treaty of Devgaon, yes, Devgaon, and with the Sindhyas, treaty of Surji Anjan Gaon, and with the Holkars, Surji Anjan Gaon. Holkar's Treaty of Raigad. Treaty of Raigad. Now remember these treaties. Sometimes they ask a question in preliminary examination in the form of match the following. So you can make your own shortcuts. S from S Sindhya, from S Surjanjan Gaon, Bhonsle BD. Then remember last one is Raigad. Now here remember that these two treaties were subsidiary in nature. These two treaties, Devgaon and Surji Anjangaon, they were subsidiary alliances. And Bhonsles and Sindhyas came under subsidiary alliance. Bhonsles in 1803 and Sindhyas in 1804. And remember or highlight in your notes that this Treaty of Raigad, it was not subsidiary in nature. Fine. Treaty of Raigad was not subsidiary in nature. One hint to you that Holkars were the last to come under subsidiary alliance. Now, when they came under subsidiary alliance, you will find it out. Fine. So, with this, second Maratha war came to end. Now, one point you can write that it was asked in exam UPSC only, where you have written that battle of Fourth Anglo-Mysore War. So, in that battle, the full name of this person was this Governor General. What was his full name? Richard Wellesley, and he was having one brother also. His brother's name was Arthur Wellesley, Arthur, Arthur Wellesley. And in that fourth Anglo-Mysore War, this Arthur Wellesley fought from the side of Britishers. So once the question was asked, question was that it was a statement that Richard Wellesley fought from the side of Britishers in the battle against Tipu Sultan, fourth Anglo-Mysore War. But it was not Richard Wellesley, it was Arthur Wellesley, his brother. Right? Brother of Richard Wellesley, that Governor General जिसके बारे में हम पढ़ रहे हैं, his brother was there, and that was military commander, military general, his brother. So one more fact you can write about him only, that he established, he means Richard Wellesley. He established, or simply established, Fort William College, Fort FORT, Fort William College, for the training of civil servants. Civil servants. Fort William. Fort William College for the training of civil servants. ये कौन मतलब इसके बारे में हम पढ़ रहे हैं? Richard Wellesley. Richard Wellesley established a college, Fort William College, like you people will be going to Labasna. Similarly, there was a college, Fort William College, but this was not accepted by Court of Directors, COD. COD rejected this idea. And in its place, separate training facility was established in Haileybury, 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 England. Haileybury, Haileybury, England. Hmm. Indians were allowed, but there were many conditions for Indians. They were never promoted, and the age limit was very less, 19 years, 21 years. Age limit was fine. एक और फैक्ट लिख दो. First, first newspaper is not related to this person, but let's say first newspaper, Bengal Gazette. Bengal Gazette by James Augustus, Augustus, Augustus Hickey, Hicky. James Augustus Hickey. And this newspaper is also known as Kolkata General Advertiser. Same. Kolkata General Advertiser. They can give any of the name in option. Advertisers. So this question was asked many times in UPSC also, and in other exams also. So you have to remember many books, their authors. I will share some PDFs with you. So you have to go through with those PDFs. In those PDFs, at one hand names are given, and on the other hand the books written by them are given. So you have to remember by heart those books. Or there are many letters, newspapers. You have to remember them. I will share with you. So now what happened during this time? During his time, French were there. Although French were defeated by Britishers, but French were there, and French started writing newspaper, and in that newspaper, French started criticizing Britishers. So when French were criticizing Britishers, so they were bringing negative image for the Britishers, not only in India, in Europe also. To stop that negative publicity, Britishers brought Censorship of Press Act 1799. You can write Censorship of Press Act 1799. Censorship of Press Act 1799. Fine. So now you understand why it was brought, because French were criticizing British administration. So to check that criticism, Britishers brought this act. Fine. Now during Press Act, Censorship of Press Act. Now during this time, British missionaries also started coming in India. Even today also you might have seen many Christian missionaries. So their sole purpose is to convert people. So they also give money to the people to get convert to Christianity, even today also. So during that time, I told you why Britishers were able to consolidate their empire in India. One reason was that they never mixed religion with their trade. For them, religion was secondary. But for Danes and for others, French, not exactly for French, but for Danes particularly, for French also mixed some religious elements. Them for them, religion, they mix religion with their trade. When you mix religion with your trade, you cannot grow. In today also, some people do that kind of a trade which is beneficial for them, but that is not allowed by their religion. So suppose if in Hinduism it is asked that you cannot have meat, that halal dhanda is not good. तो होता है मार्केट का meat shops, but there is very huge amount of revenue in this field, so one cannot practice that trade. So if one is religiously very particular. But Britishers never mixed their religion with their trade. And Britishers missionaries were allowed to come to India. They were allowed to come to India, but they were not allowed by Britishers to reside in their territories. Britishers, suppose this Chandigarh is the British territory, and Britishers from Britain, they are allowing British missionaries to come to India for this missionary activities. But in Chandigarh, they will not allow them to settle. They will ask them that you can live in Zirakpur, you can live in Nagaon or Mohali, but you will not be able, you will not be residing in Chandigarh. So they used to reside in Danes territory. Danes were there, Denmark. So they used to reside in Danes territory. So many Britishers came to India. They reside in Danes territory. So they did the missionary activities. They converted Bible into native languages, vernacular languages of India. They converted Bible into those languages, Hindi, Urdu, other Marathi, and other languages, so that local people can uh, learn about the Bible. So this was all about Wellesley. Fine. Now give the next heading. Barlow, Barlow, 18052. 180. Not much eventful. One important event was there, only one. Vellore, Vellore. Vellore mutiny. Vellore mutiny. In what happened? There was a British of Vellore. Have you heard about Vellore? No. Well, VIT का नाम नहीं सुना आप लोगों ने? Vellore Institute of Technology. नहीं सुना? Google after class. So Vellore is a place in South India. I don't remember even exact state. So this Vellore, there was an army regiment there in Vellore. Army unit was there, and there was a person named John Craddock. John Craddock or James Craddock was a person there. Now this John Craddock, he found that British Indian soldiers, not British Indian soldiers, they are very unsoldierly. At that time, suppose if a person army, what distinguishes army from other people? In army there is uniformity. Everyone is having same dress. Why is a uniform in school? To bring uniformity, so that no one feels superior or inferior. Similar kind of situation is there in military. But Indian soldiers were looking very unsoldierly. He found that because some were having religious marks on their forehead, someone wearing kada. Even today also, suppose if Sikhs used to wear pagdi and they used to keep beard and they are wearing kada. And similarly, Hindus used to uh, have that tilak in their forehead. Some are having choti, and some Muslims they are not having mustache and they are having beard, and they different kind of religious marks are there in Indian society. So those remarks were there also in military, but that make the force very unsoldierly, because in forge or in military we needs discipline. If your religious identities are very visible, so it will be very difficult for you to see or to become as one unit, because your religious identities will keep you apart from the others. Suppose there are 10 people and one person is standing there with very long tilak, so he will be highlighted, he will be different from others. So such kind of issues were there in Indian army, or the people who belong to India, or the Indian regiments. This James John Craddock, he changed the uniform of army. He introduced hat for the Indian soldier, that you have to wear hat. You know that cowboy hat. That kind of a hat was used, introduced in the army. And some dress codes were also issued, that you have to wear this dress, and you don't have to follow your religious marks while you are on duty. So suppose I am wearing rakhi, so these religious marks, rakhis, are not allowed. At the same time, person of Indian origin who used to get convert to Christianity, they also used to wear hats. to show that now they are Christians. Now if you are Christian, how will you flaunt that you are Christian? You will wear Christian clothes. Otherwise, how will we come to know that you are a Christian? So those people who get newly converted to Christianity, they wear that cross to flaunt that now we are Christians. At that time, the people who are newly converted to Christians, they also used to wear caps or hats, those hats. And similar kind of hats were introduced in army. And the army soldiers thought that this British people, they want to change our religion. That is why they are introducing hats. Until now, the system was working nicely, but now they are introducing hats. It means they want to change our religion. And with this thought, they rose up in mutiny against the Britishers. And in that mutiny, they released one of the son of Tipu Sultan. Fateh Haider was his name. He was captured by Britishers. Remember in third Anglo-Mysore War. So that was released by these sepoys. This Vellore mutiny. They released that Fateh Haider, and ultimately there was a one person. His name was Rollo Gillespie. This person crushed this revolt or mutiny by the soldier ultimately, because Britishers were much powerful as compared to the Indian army. He crushed the revolt, but this was a message to the Britishers that Indians can unite against the Britishers for a common cause. So many of the historians, they also say that this Vellore mutiny was the first struggle of Indian independence against the Britishers. You can write this point, that some of the historians argue that Vellore mutiny was the first struggle of independence against Britishers. Fine. Now next, Lord so 18 मैंने लिखा था 1807 7 to 1830. So you don't have to remember all the timelines, you have to remember important events. So suppose you remembered Vellore mutiny 1806. So there you just have to strike that Barlow was there during the time of Vellore mutiny. So if Vellore mutiny is in your mind, Barlow will automatically be there in your mind. So that will help you to arrange sequences. Rollo Gillespie, ROLLO, Rollo Gillespie, GILLESPIE, Rollo Gillespie. Now, what happened? During that time, or during this time, Napoleon was there in France, and France was continuously against British in India also, and in France also, in Europe also. So French and Britishers were bitter enemies of each other from the time immemorial. Now Napoleon tried to find out that what is the reason which is helping Britishers to have an upper hand over all the European powers. And Napoleon found out that it is their trade which is making them rich. If you are rich, you can buy anything. Money is the power. With money, you can do everything you want. You can become leader, you can become actor, you can become everything, anything you want. So money is the power. So Napoleon found that it is the trade which is helping Britishers. And if you observe that Britain is an island. So Britain is not much connected to the land with the other countries. So it is having sea on all its sides. Now he brought a continental system. In this system, he blocked the trade of other European countries with the Britain. Napoleon asked all the other European countries. At that time, Napoleon was very powerful. It is like today's China and US. So if US says that if any country will trade with the one particular country, we will put sanctions. Everyone frightens from US. So similar kind of a threat was there from Napoleon. Napoleon gave an open warning that whosoever will trade with Britain, I will attack that particular country. So it was an open threat, and no one was trading with Britishers, and Britishers were in a problem. At the same time, there was a person of a ruler of Russia. His name was Alexander I. And Alexander I, he did some kind of a trade with the England, Britain, you can say. So he violated Alexander I. He was the ruler of Russia. So when Napoleon found out that Alexander I has violated his threatening, Napoleon attacked Russia in 1806. Napoleon attacked Russia. When Napoleon attacked Russia, nothing much happened. Ultimately, they signed a Treaty of Tilsit in 1807. They signed a treaty. Alexander I and or Napoleon, they signed a Tilsit, Tilsit. They signed a Treaty of Tilsit. Now they signed a treaty that they will mutually trade with each other and they will support each other in each other's expeditions. At the same time, before that, not at the same time, before that, Tipu Sultan in India in 1700s, 1790s, Tipu also invited Napoleon. If you remember, I told you that Tipu was the most dominant enemy of Britishers in India because he was inviting other powers. He was forming a confederacy against the Britishers. And Britishers also have a fear from the Tipu Sultan. Now, Russia is in very close here. Here is Russia, China, Mongolia. Then there is Russia, not exact to the map. And Russia can come from this side, Afghanistan, towards India. There was an issue. Now Russia, with the help of France, can come to India and they can attack Britishers. Britishers thought this. Now Britishers were in a constant fear. That fear is called as Russophobia. Russophobia was there with the Britishers. Now Britishers were frightened of Russian invasion, that Russians can anytime attack. Tipu Sultan was dead by this time. Had Tipu Sultan been there, then we might have here now you might be studying Russian invasion. So now Britishers were frightened that French and Russia can come together, they can attack because French were the enemies of the Britishers, and for Russia it was very easy to attack India because it was a neighbor, it was a neighborhood. Now this person Minto, he thought that again that policy of ring fence, that in the frontier there is a state here, Punjab state was there, and Punjab was untouched from till now, untouched from these kind of revolutions. Wars were there in South India and in Eastern India, Bengal and this region war was there. In Punjab and Himalayan region, no, not much wars were there. And in Punjab, he sent few of his agents. Punjab and here Sindh was there because here is Himalaya region. So it is very difficult to attack from this side. Even today also, it is not feasible for China to attack from this side. So many times either they can attack from this or this side. But India is having strong navy here. Even today also, at that time also, they were having navy. And at that time, technology was not that superior for Russia and all the powers to attack from this side. So they can attack from this side because here are plains. Punjab region, Rajasthan region, plain areas. So most of the invasions of India happened from this side. So now there was a region Sindh, Punjab, Iran, Iraq, Rojan. So Minto tried to send his envoys in these particular kingdoms. You can write that Minto sent Metcalf टू पंजाब, ऐसे टेबल फॉर्म में लिख दो, Metcalf पंजाब, METCALFE, Metcalf to Punjab. Metcalf is the name of a person, envoy, ambassador, you can say. Like we send our ambassadors to other countries. So he sent his envoy Metcalf to Punjab. Second one, Elphinstone. Elphinstone. Elphinstone to Afghan. Elphinstone to Afghan. Then Nicholas Smith to Sindh. Then a person named Malcolm to Iran. Malcolm to Iran. So in Punjab, you can write in bracket, Raja Ranjit Singh was ruling in Punjab. Ruler of Punjab, Raja Ranjit Singh. Here only. Afghan and Sindh, both they were ruled by Amirs. Amir, AMIR, Amirs. Iran was ruled by Shahs, Zaman Shah, you can write. Zaman Shah. ZAMN, Zaman Shah. Actually, these army in Afghanistan or Sindh, Amirs were there. They were tribal rulers, not a kings like India. They were tribal rulers. Now, when Metcalf went to Punjab region, he signed a treaty of Amritsar. Treaty of Amritsar in 1809. In this treaty, it was decided. That neither side will cross the river Satluj. For crossing river Satluj will be an act of war. Crossing river Satluj will be an act of war. So the area beyond Satluj river will be the territory of Punjab region. Now Ranjit Singh was free to annex any region beyond river Satluj. And towards the Indian territory of this river Satluj or eastern side, Britishers were having monopoly. Fine. I do next. Ranjit Singh annexed Lahore from Zaman Shah 1799. Next लिख दो comma Peshawar from Afghan, Amir of Afghan 1834. Rojhan, Rojhan, Rojhan from Amirs of Sindh 1836. Fine. So this was the story during the time of Minto. Now they ask question that who sent envoys to frontiers. Remember Minto, and you have to remember these agents also. Metcalf is important. If you can remember others, so others it will be beneficial for you. But Metcalf you have to remember essentially. And Treaty of Amritsar also 1809. Right. So now give the next heading, Charter Act of 1813. 13 Charter Act of 1813. So these charter acts are coming every 20 years. 1733 regulating act, then 93, 13, then after 13 it will be in 33. Fine. So company's rule was extended by 20 more years. First line. Company's rule was extended by 20 more years. 20 more years. Second point. Trading monopoly of the company. Trading monopoly of the company was abolished. Except for tea and trade in China. Tea and trade in China. So can you tell why this monopoly was abolished? We have studied today only that reason. If you connect the points, why there was a need for the Britishers to extend trade? What could have been the reason? Remember continental system, continental blockade of Napoleon. Napoleon blocked Europeans, Britishers. He stopped Britishers to trade from the other European powers, and there was a pressure from the European traders that allow us to trade with India. So they were pressurizing British government that if you are allowing only one particular company to trade in India, and in Europe Napoleon is not allowing us to trade, then where will we go? Under that pressure, British government allowed those traders who were trading in Europe to trade with India. For that purpose, trading monopoly of East India Company from India was abolished. Fine. Next point. Two separate accounts were created. Two separate accounts were created. Accounts, yes. Two separate accounts were created. One for commercial purpose or commercial profits, and other for territorial revenue. Other for territorial revenue. Next point. Rules made by councils of Calcutta and Madras. Yes. Councils of Rules made by councils of Calcutta and Madras were to be placed before British Parliament for approval. Next point. Christian missionaries were allowed into India or in India. Now remember, here they officially allowed Christian missionaries in India, in the British territory only. Otherwise, they were already also coming to India beforehand also, but not in the British Indian territories. They were residing in the other European territories. Fine. And the bishop was Bishop BISHOP was appointed in Calcutta. Bishop was appointed in Calcutta. This act, next point, this act had the provision to spend, 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 to spend 1 lakh rupees on education but could not be spent for next 10 years. Be spent for next 10 years due to Anglicist and Orientalists, Anglicists and Orientalists controversy. Now there was a controversy. There was a provision to spend a few fund of around 1 lakh rupees for educational purpose. Now controversy was that how to spend this fund. Few of the persons were supporting English language, that the education should be in English language because it is the language of us also. Britishers said that it is our language and it will be easy for us to communicate in English language, and they wanted to conversate or give education in English language. But there were few people who were supporting vernacular languages. They said that initial knowledge or initial education should be in vernacular language only. That is good for the early development of child. There was a person, Macaulay. Macaulay, he supported Macaulay or LDY. Macaulay supported Anglicist. He was Anglicist. And a person, HT Prinsep. Prinsep, he was Orientalist. He was a supporter of vernacular language. ST Prinsep and Macaulay, Lord Macaulay. Fine. So then remember that Anglicist means European or English languages. Orientalist, if you remember, Oriental study of arts. Remember Asiatic Society of Bengal, Oriental studies, studies related to Asia or Indian people. Fine. So he was the promoter of vernacular language, and it is good also to study in vernacular language in the early education. Most of the scientists, they have their early education from their mother tongue only. Most of the Germans, they studied from their vernacular languages. Fine. Now, to resolve this controversy, in 1823, a committee was formed, General Committee of Public Instructions. 1823. Remember, in 1823, a committee was established to end this controversy. Public instruction, that in which language instructions should be given. General Committee on Public Instructions was established, and this committee became Public Instruction. बस इतना ही लिखो, General Committee on Public Instruction. Fine. Give the next heading. M. Hastings, or only Hastings, Hastings. Hastings. Hastings 1813 to 1823. So first heading under him, Anglo-Nepal War, 1814 to 1816. Now, why this war was fought? So when I draw this map, this includes Nepal also. So suppose this was the map of Nepal, suppose, and somewhere here is Himalayan region, and somewhere here is Himachal, and then here is Uttarakhand. Now the region of this Himachal and Uttarakhand is very rugged topography. Himalayas are there, territory is not demarcated. And in Himachal region, there were many kings, and they were having relations with the Nepalese rulers or Gurkhas particularly. And in Uttarakhand also, Uttarakhand is very in vicinity to Nepal. So they were having marriage relationships with the Nepalese people, Gurkhas. Now, after some time, there was a person in Nepal. His name was Amar Singh Thapa. Amar Singh Thapa, not important for UPSC. Amar Singh Thapa came to Himachal region, and in Himachal region, he occupied many territories: Shimla, Kangra, and all the territories, Solan, all the territories they occupied. Then ultimately, the rulers of native rulers of Himachal and Uttarakhand, they pleaded to in the court of Britishers that help us from the uh, birth of these Nepalese rulers, Gurkhas. And Gurkhas started plundering British territories. Now, in 1800s, for the first time, Britishers came to India. So finally, they had a war with Britishers. Gurkhas, they had a war with Britishers, and in that war, Britishers defeated Gurkhas. Nepalese were defeated, and a treaty was signed. In that treaty, the dispute between India and Nepal for that war, that map, Kali River map, Limpia Dhura in Uttarakhand. So there is a place in Uttarakhand, and Britishers decided that there was a river somewhere here. There is a river in Himalayas. There is a river in Himalayas. This is the river, and this river changes its course. And when treaty was signed, suppose this river was here. Now, after the course of a time, in when treaty was signed, this river changes course like this. Now, India claims that this was the original source. It should be the source of reference. But Nepal says that now it should be the course. So if river shifts its course toward the side of Nepal, this region in between, Nepal is claiming this region. But when the treaty was signed, river was from here. So in that treaty, it was written by Britishers that River Kali is the demarcating territory. That territory is toward the this side of River Kali, it is for India, and toward the right of this River Kali for Nepal. Now this river keeps changing its territory, its course. So for that purpose, issue is there. Now ultimately, Britishers defeated Gurkhas, and they vacated all their offices in Himachal and Uttarakhand region, and they went back to their own country. And the treaty was signed, Treaty of Sugoli in 1816. This treaty is important. Treaty of Sugoli, 1816. Fine. So that was all about the Nepal War. You have to just remember this year and this treaty. So now there are many wars. With Nepal, there is only one war. With Afghan, there are wars. With Burma, there are wars, and they are having different treaties. So they ask treaties in preliminary examination. Next is Third Anglo-Mysore War. Sorry, Anglo-Maratha War, not Mysore. Third Anglo-Maratha War, 1870, 18. So now there are two reasons for this war. First, we will discuss first reason, then we will discuss second reason. So now, who was Peshwa? No, he was removed. Bajirao. He was reinstalled when he signed treaty with Britishers, Treaty of Bassein. He was reinstalled. Now, what happened? Bajirao, if you remember, Gaikwad's of Baroda was an important Maratha power, but Gaikwads did not sign any treaty when in the second Anglo-Maratha war. Remember, Treaty of Devgaon, Surjanjangaon, and Treaty of one more Treaty of Raigad was there, but no treaty was there with the Gaikwads. And Gaikwads were friends of Britishers. But Peshwa, as Peshwa was head of whole Maratha region, and Peshwa was demanding revenue from Gaikwad region. He was asking for his share from the territory of Gaikwads. But Gaikwads were adamant that no, we will not give any revenue to the Peshwas. So there was an issue, and issue was because Gaikwad was they were supported by Britishers. For that reason, issue was there. Now there was a minister of Peshwa. His name was Trimbakji Pingale. Trimbakji Pingale was a minister. This minister, he was the prime minister actually, Trimbakji Pingale. He killed one of the minister of Gaikwads. This Trimbakji Pingale killed one of the person of Gaikwads. Bajirao का minister Trimbakji Pingale, Bajirao II, Trimbakji Pingale, and he killed a minister Gangadhar Shastri. Gangadhar Shastri was minister of Gaikwad. Fine. Now Gaikwads, with the help of Britishers, they were asking Peshwa to surrender this person Trimbakji Pingale, to give this person to us. Now this person Bajirao was not in favor to hand over Trimbakji Pingale to Gaikwads and Britishers. Hastings sent British army to Pune, and Bajirao too was forced to sign a treaty of Pune in 1817. Hastings, Governor General, he sent a British army to Peshwa, and Peshwa was forced to sign a treaty of Pune. पहले भी थी एक बैटल ऑफ पूना पढ़ी हमने, ट्रीटी भी थी पहले, ये अलग है. Treaty of Pune, according to which control of a Peshwa over Maratha Confederacy was abolished. According to which control of Peshwa over Maratha Confederation or Confederacy was abolished. Right? Now there was another reason for this war also. Another reason was that Marathas signed earlier the Marathas signed a subsidiary alliance. Treaty of Bassein, then Treaty of Surjanjangaon, Treaty of Devgaon, they were subsidiary in nature. And there was a particular group of people, they are called Pindaris. Pindaris were soldiers in Maratha army. So when Marathas signed subsidiary alliance, they became jobless, Pindaris, because they were not having any job. They were mercenary soldiers. You know mercenary? Mercenary means those who works for money. Mercenary soldiers, they were mercenary soldiers. But when Marathas abandoned their army and when they came under a subsidiary alliance, they lost their jobs. And Britishers forced Sindhyas to sign a treaty. Britishers forced Sindhyas to sign a treaty in 1817. Treaty of Gwalior, you can write. Treaty of Gwalior to suppress. Treaty of 1817. Treaty of Gwalior to suppress Pindaris. So now in bracket you can write, now Sindhyas are angry against Britishers. And Britishers also interfered into the succession disputes of Bhonsles. Bhonsles. We are talking about 4 Maratha families. Now Bajirao is angry because he was forced to sign a treaty of Pune. Bajirao is angry. Sindhyas are angry. Bhonsles are angry. Now a battle was there. Different Maratha families, they fought separately with the Britishers. They already signed treaty. So first one was Battle of Khidki. Khidki, Khirki. 1817 separately लड़े थे. 1817 Peshwa was defeated. Khidki, yes. Peshwa was defeated. Second was Battle of Sitabuldi. 1817 Bhonsles were defeated. Sitabuldi, Sitabuldi, Sitabuldi. Now almost all are defeated by Britishers. Gaikwad are already subordinate to them because Britishers, they were siding with the Britishers. Gaikwads. Peshwa is defeated. Bhonsles are defeated. Only remaining power is Holkars. Now in 1818 in the Battle of Mohitpur, 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 Holkars were defeated. And Treaty of Mandsar was signed. This treaty was subsidiary in nature. So I answered one of your homework. This treaty was subsidiary in nature. So important takeaway is that Holkars were the last to sign subsidiary treaty. The rest of the Maratha families have already signed subsidiary treaties, but Holkars were the last to sign subsidiary treaty. Now in this battle, Marathas were completely abolished. They were defeated. Now onwards, Marathas will not play any important role in the struggle for independence. Now to satisfy the right on this point, to satisfy the political ego of Marathas, Pratap Singh, a descendant, Pratap Singh a descendant from Shivaji's family, was made ruler of small principality in Satara. And Bajirao to Satara, Satara. And Bajirao too was pensioned off. Bajirao too was pensioned off to Kanpur. ब्रैकेट में लिख दो his adopted son, इसका बाजीराव टू का his adopted son नाना साहेब और इसी का ही नाम है धोंदू पंत, THONDU, धोंदू पंत, PANT. One you can write one more fact separately. This battle is over. That Raja Ram Mohan Rai established Hindu College in Calcutta in 1817. In 1817, and in this college both Western humanities and science was taught. Next heading. Rayotwari settlement, 1820, by Thomas Munro and Reed. 1820, Thomas Munro and Reed. Now this was different from that permanent settlement. How? You can see. Now what was there in permanent settlement? There were peasants, there was a mediator, zamindar, then there were Britishers. But in this Rayotwari settlement, you know what is the meaning of word Rayot? Farmer. Yes, Rayot means farmer. Here settlement was directly made with the Rayots. They said that they acknowledged their mistake, that zamindars were having unnecessary profit and we were losing a huge chunk of money, and zamindars were becoming rich. And to avoid that loss, Britishers made a revenue or settlement directly with the farmers. Here Britishers said that firstly they made farmers as the real owners of land. Earlier, who were the real owners? Zamindars were the real owners. Here in this case, farmers became the real owners of land. Fine. But here revenue was extremely high. Earlier there was 50% of a revenue. Here revenue was 55%. That 55% of the produce has to be given as a tax to the government. 55% was the revenue. This system was introduced initially in Madras and Bombay. And later on in parts of Bengal, Assam, and Coorg. COORG, Coorg. Bengal, Assam, and Coorg. Coorg is a region in, you will Google, South India, Karnataka, Google karna. Now, this settlement was directly with the farmer, 55%, and this system was for the 25 to 30 years. They thought that for 25 to 30 years, this system will work nicely. But this system was very punitive for farmers, because 55%, you can imagine how much higher this revenue was, and ultimately farmers were at the loss. And later on, after a few years, Britishers clarified that farmers were not the real owners of land. They what they are paying as 55% is the rent. Actually, the land belonged to the Britishers only. Firstly, they said that farmers are the real owners and they will pay revenue of 55%. But later on, they clarified that farmers are not the real owners. We are the real owners. Farmers are paying just the rent. Fine. Now, this was the 55%. Farmers paid as a rent, 1820. Now, there was one more settlement. The name of that settlement was Mahalwari settlement. It was introduced in 1822. इससे अलग है, रोहित से अलग है. दे दो अलग हेडिंग. In this Mahalwari system, Mahal, Muhal is a village. So in this system, the revenue was decided for a village, for one particular village. That village will give revenue. It was not decided independently for one person. For a whole village, revenue was decided. So after some time, few modifications were there in this land revenue. So leave 2-3 lines, will let you know. 2-3 lines you can leave, 4 lines you can leave. We'll discuss it later on also. Now, this was the revenue settlement. 3 types of revenue settlements are there. You have to remember for preliminary examination as well as for your mains examination. Now, due to this revenue settlement, ultimately farmers were at the loss. So revenue was very high, 50%, 55%. In Rayotwari it was again high. In Maharwari it was very high, 60s, in 60% it was. So farmers were at the loss, and firstly zamindars and then Britishers were becoming rich at the cost of farmers. So when farmers became poor, they came in rebellion. So if you are not happy with the government, you will revolt. So ultimately, we will see they will group and they will rose in a rebellion against the Britishers in 1857. There will be a revolt of 1857. So remember that one section we have discussed, farmers are not happy. Earlier we have discussed also, rulers are not also happy. Marathas are not happy. Mysore rulers, they are not happy. Bengal rulers, they are not happy, because all were eliminated by Britishers. Not a single section is happy with the Britishers. Traders are also not happy. So no one is happy with the Britishers. So these all events will grow the seeds of nationalism in India, and they will rise against rebellion against the Britishers. The rest we will discuss in the next class. Fine. That's all for today. Okay, fine.